Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I want to start out today by telling everyone where I've been if you haven't seen my community posts. About a month ago now, my grandfather ended up in the hospital due to a broken hip, and because of complications, he ended up passing less than a few days later. As I'm in Sweden and most of my family's in the US, I was unfortunately unable to visit him in the hospital before he passed away, which was very tough on me. As my primary father figure, it hit me way harder than expected, and it took me a while to recalibrate and renormalize. Thank you all so much for your patience while I was figuring everything out. Next, I want to announce something big. After a ton of thinking, debating, and discussing, my wife Crystal and I have decided to move back to the United States from our current country of Sweden. This was not an easy choice to make, and it has one major factor and then several sub factors. The primary reason is to be closer to family and friends. Recently, there have been a lot of changes to my family, and I haven't been able to be there with them. When we moved here at the beginning of 2022, flights were much cheaper and the cost of living was lower, which has made it so we haven't been able to visit home since moving here. I had also assumed that both of us would be employed, which leads to my next point. As a junior software developer who's still learning Swedish, Crystal hasn't been able to find a job yet. There are numerous things that contribute to this, but for the sake of this video, I'll say that despite applying to multiple jobs daily, she hasn't received more than a handful of interviews. As a country that assumes two incomes, this has been very hard on us, especially with US tax law also in play. I don't want to get into them here, but if you're interested in what US citizens living abroad have to deal with tax-wise, then I recommend you check out this video by Evan Ettinger, I'm going to put it on screen here, to get a little more of a feel for it. I would watch it after this video. Regardless, we've been able to make ends meet because of this channel mostly, which I'm endlessly thankful for, but that leads me to my next point. I'd really like to be able to do more with it. A combination of lack of time, import fees, and immigration laws make that very hard to do here in Sweden. As an example, when a company ships directly to Sweden from either the US or China, it can take up to a month to arrive here. If I want to review a product, especially a new product, I am immediately at a disadvantage over someone in the US, for instance. It just takes too long for products to get here. As the next example, I have to pay a pretty high import fee on anything shipped here, even if that item is free to me as a reviewer. The 1x Player 2 that I reviewed in the video on screen now was sent to me for review, but I still had to pay several hundred US dollars for it to be imported into the country, which was honestly much more than the video made in revenue. For a final example, there are some items that I can't get here for a reasonable price. For example, the X-Real Airs that I reviewed in my previous video are 3 times the price here in Sweden. On top of that, the adapter that many of the viewers were recommending that I use, the Red Magic dock adapter, doesn't ship here through any Amazon or through AliExpress, anything. I could not find it. I might be able to get it if I had somebody buy it in the US then ship it to me, but that's just not feasible long term. As for the time required to push the channel further, I need to maintain a legitimate job in order to keep my work visa. If that lapses, then I'll have to go back to the US. That leads me to my last issue, immigration law. While I'm not affected immediately by any of the immigration law changes that have made since I got here, I am affected long term. Permanent residence is getting more difficult to obtain, and Swedish citizenship went from being 5 years until 8 years until you can apply, and that's not including the processing time. That means that it can be up to 9 years from the time we arrived until we're safe in the system. Until that time, I can't take any major risks that would jeopardize that process, so I'm not able to make a company with any reasonable degree of certainty, for example. At least not to the best of my knowledge. Part of the immigration law is that there is a minimum income requirement to remain a highly skilled laborer, which is fine, but if I need to work part-time in order to do extra work on the channel, for instance, or do anything for that matter, then that doesn't meet the requirement anymore, and then I will not get a renewed work visa. Even if I could, US citizenship and foreign policy would make it so the paperwork was much more complicated, further increasing the risk of jeopardizing my immigration papers. And to be clear, advisory, I'm not a lawyer and I've only briefly consulted with some people familiar with it. But in addition to all the other things, this is just more wood on the fire. The next thing I want to discuss is timeline. Right now, we have tickets back for early September. I don't want to announce the direct date yet, just in case we have to shuffle them forward or back, but it will be early September to the best of my knowledge. My job has already been made aware, so now I just need to save up for the expenses for the move and after we arrive in the US. I'll need to do pretty much everything from scratch again. I'll need to rebuild computers, I'll need to get a new car, I'll need to get insurance and an apartment, all of the things that most people would have some of going in. I won't have any of that to begin with. So, why am I telling you this? Because after moving back to the US, I'll very likely be unemployed and I will have a lot of time to work on the channel. I may continue to look for jobs, but it depends on the success of this channel. I can put in much more time and make this channel so much better with that extra time. So whether I look for a job depends on the outcome of that, and whether Crystal can find a job in a reasonable amount of time. And that brings me to what I need from you. First, I would love to see in the comments whether you want me to turn this into a full-time thing. I can put more time towards it, but I only will if there's interest. If there's no interest, then I'll just start applying for jobs. I have a ton of ideas. More Steam Deck and handheld content, building out cryo utilities, PC hardware reviews and performance numbers, and of course more product reviews. Don't worry about me running out of content. I have a million ideas and I'll probably need to make more channels to make them all happen. At the moment, my main holdup is time. I'm working more than one full-time job plus the channel on the side. But seeing that wave of support in the comments would really let me know that that's something that you're interested in, and I can then go into this feeling much safer about it. Secondly, if you could share my videos around to others that might be interested, that would help a lot. Channels live and die by the algorithm, so getting that boost might be what I need in order to get this into a more financially secure position. Lastly, while I don't expect it, I know somebody's going to ask anyway. So if you want to contribute to me financially in a more direct way, you could use Patreon for a recurring donation, PayPal or a super thanks for a one-time donation. You could buy a Humble Bundle using my partner code, Cryobite33. That actually gives me a little bit of money for no extra cost to you. Or use one of my affiliate links in the description below. I have everything that I'm going to put down there, so I can vouch to its quality. But yeah, that would help me out more than you could possibly imagine while I have to rebuild my life again. Again, no financial support is expected, but I appreciate every little bit that is given, especially since I haven't replenished my savings since I originally moved here. Wrapping up, I want to give you all the biggest thank you for allowing me even the option to maybe make this full time. I never thought I would get this far. I'm still trying to get to that 100,000 sub silver play button, which has been my ideal for a long time. So yeah, just thank you so much for giving me the option to even maybe make this a full-time thing, even if I end up having to get a job on top of it. Even in that case, I'm not going anywhere, but I would like to see how far I can make this YouTube thing go. As for what's coming up next, definitely stay tuned to the channel because I'm going to be testing every model of Steam Deck drive, 64 gig, 256, 512, and then also a 1 terabyte aftermarket drive, and testing how that affects performance, including like load times, swap file performance, um, install times, all those things with the Steam Deck. So you'll get to see exactly how the performance numbers correlate and determine if it makes more sense to upgrade to a 512 than a 1 terabyte if you don't need the extra space or something. So definitely stay tuned for that. I would expect it in about a week or two. I've been working at a half pace because of all of this stuff going on. I'm sorry for the bad lighting and the kind of rushed feeling of this video. It's very lightly scripted. I just had a set of talking points and it's been a long month. But yeah, I appreciate you all so much, more than I can ever verbalize it in here. And yeah, just thank you. And of course, as always, thank you all for watching and have a great day.